All right, so we'll talk about our life that we live. The life that we live is basically in the Sansar. Sansar is all we know. Sansar is what we breathe, we eat, we play, suffer, get the joys, sufferings, everything, and then pass away. It's not an achievement, really. It's like you're like stuck in a big crowd, and the whole crowd is like inch to inch, all cramped up, and they all are moving. And if you move with it, it's not really a big achievement. With the pushing of the crowd, you're going to move anyway. And that's all we're doing, really. We never really wake up to realize, what are we doing? Why are we here? What is the purpose? All those questions never arise. And while we are living, all we need is connections. We connect with objects, people, situations. And connections, fine, are necessary, but we become dependent on them. It's like when you, in the winter time, you're wearing a jacket and it's freezing cold outside, and you come home and you look for a hook that you can hang your jacket on. So that's how we need to rely on others. And that's reliance to each other is sansar. Of course, there are basic needs of the body, but at the same time, to become dependent and getting lost in these connections is almost like addictions of each other, is what makes us mesmerized into the sansar and forget what we really came here for. So I had one incident I'll tell you about. I had a patient. He had pretty severe diabetes, kidney problems, and he had a renal transplant, and then his liver failed. A lot of problems, medical issues, and very nice family, Hispanic, and they had two daughters and a wife, and finally he was admitted to one hospital, and he ended up dying, basically. And it was a very shocking, which was very close-knit family. They loved each other, and very, very sad. So one of the daughters, she was the one who was not married. There's another daughter was married and settled in Texas. So this girl comes to see me, and she was just crying and sobbing right and left. She came for the blood work, and I said, calm down, what is the matter? So I took her in the room, and she said that I really miss my dad. I was so attached to him, and I could understand, but then as usual, I tried to spend some time in spirituality and try to explain to her that basically the body is a mortal thing. It has to go through the stages. Sometimes it is sooner, sometimes it's later. But if you try to meditate and connect with your soul, which is an observer of your whole life's journey, can always stay with you. And that's what he was. He was not the body. So she seemed to understand. I explained to her how to meditate, to calm down. Maybe this was not the best time because she was so overwhelmed with the grief, but I couldn't help it. And maybe it was my mistake to bring it up at the wrong time, but intention was good. So, but she seemed to take it very well. And she says, Dr. Shah, I promise I'm going to meditate every day. And that should help me. So she came for a blood work discussion, results of the blood work. She came back just about a week later. And suddenly she was so bubbly and happy. And I said, what happened? I didn't say anything. But just a week ago, she was like almost going to commit suicide after her dad, He says, oh, no, my sister just gave me the news that she got pregnant and been expecting a baby. And suddenly she's like overjoyed. And this is a scenario all across the sansar being played. right? We attach with something. So for her, one of the hooks was her dad, and something happened to her. Now that hook was gone. She could not figure out where to put her jacket on. And suddenly now she gets a new hook, new hope, and now she's attached that again. It's like we never come out of we replace the attachments, but we never come out of the attachments. When is this attachments gonna be over? We have so much faith in each other somehow, and yet the fact is nobody is immortal. So we trust on each other as if it's gonna last forever. But that's where the problem comes in, and that's why the suffering comes in. But the question is, what do we do about it? Why do we need so much support? We never ask, who is the one who's looking for support and why? The answer is your ego. Ego is you have created this false identity of yourself based on your body, and then body's interactions with others, meaning the mind. So mental sansar and physical sansar. This physical body, along with your mind, is your ego. But ego is incomplete. Ego, fine, if we were self-satisfied, would have been fine, but we are far from it. Our body needs support, needs to breathe. Oxygen has to come from somewhere. Food has to come from somewhere. Then we drink and we urinate and we defecate and we eat, and all those things keep on going. And this prana that is in our body, that is a must for us to survive. So ego itself, even though we believe it to be real, it's really continuously changing process. And that's why it's incomplete. It's not steady. If it was created once and for all, like a big commercial building with a solid footing, then say, okay, I don't have to worry about it. But we do worry about it all the time. What do we worry about? To get the pleasures from outside. Pleasures are from objects, people, situations. We need people, we need connections, we need socializations, we need physical pleasures, to objects of pleasures. All those things are necessary for us to survive. And why do we need them? Because that's the only way ego will know itself. Like we always talk about it, as soon as a child is born, for him or her, the first identification starts with the mom. And the psychologists have said that he knows the mother first. And only after that, at the age of 2.5, it comes to know his own body. So what he calls ego is a secondary development after realizing other people in sansar. So even our own identity, we are not sure of. We don't know when we were born. We don't know when we're going to go. And even the first identity that we have, on which the ego is built, also comes from someone else. So ego means dependence. Only when we really try to go within, then only we start realizing in meditation that there is another entity that you can experience. You cannot know it, but you can experience it. And with that experience can show the distance between that entity and your ego. That's when the ego starts pulverizing, gets destroyed right in front of your eyes. And the only thing remains is the pure consciousness. But until then, we have to rely on everybody else. So we rely on these objects of pleasures and people and situations, and we become dependent on them. And sansar is the biggest addiction there is. Sansar is very addictive, because as soon as one object passes away or gets out of your life, you look for another object. And then you get consolation. It's almost like, as Osho says, that if there is a child and you give him a toy, and the toy, he keeps on playing with it, he becomes so busy playing with this toy. And then as soon as he starts getting bored, you give him another toy. And then he keep on going. and he will never come out of that play. And Sansar is just that. And in between, if you tell that child that your mother just died, it will be tough to get him out of those toys because his mind is fixated on that. And the same thing is happening to us. We are like children. We are fixated on our toys. It's time for us to grow up. But growing up, and we'll do what? Right now, we have faith in each other. We have faith that your neighbor is telling you the truth, that, oh, I saw this and that. Maybe he's lying. We don't know. Somebody comes and backbites about someone else. You immediately believe it. Oh, yeah, I always knew that. That guy is like that. Somebody says something good, then you have a hard time. Oh, I'm not so sure. So this way, we trust each other. You go to the doctors, you have to trust the doctors. You go to a temple and you trust that Pujari will be telling you the truth. He will be taking you to the right direction. We trust something that is created within the Sansar. But nobody asks who created this Sansar, how this Sansar came into existence. We never go beyond all these things because we are so happy playing with these toys like the child is. Supposing two children are fighting and one of the child's toy gets broken. What does he do? He goes to his mom. Now, there are two things mom can do. One, she can say that, okay, don't worry about it. I'll get you another toy. But that's a wrong approach because now he's still getting fixated on the toy. An ideal mom will teach him that toys do break. And that's why you have my lap. Come to me and lie down here in my comfort. And within a few minutes, the child forgets his loss of the toy. So sometimes small things can be utilized by an ideal mother to teach that whole Sansar is impermanent. So same scenario, if we put down in meditation, what are we doing? We're going with so many complaints to the God. We're going within, which we don't even want to walk away from Sansar because we have so many attachments. Right now, what is mine, I'm attached to it. If I lose them tomorrow, I'm going to be upset. I'm worried about the future. I'm going to continue this relationship or not. So even when we are trying to meditate and trying to walk away from the mind, our mind is still keeps going, just like that child. So that's why you need, with repetitive experiences in the meditation, realize that there is some entity which is beyond, and that we can reach by observation and walk away. Observation creates three things: the observer, the observed, and the observation, the process. So through this process, we can start creating distance from the mind, and then ultimately ask ourselves, who is the observer? And that's where we get the answer from within, the consciousness itself. But consciousness is really not the best word for it. It is a different existence altogether, which is infinite, which is totally beyond your concept of what you had about this Sansar. But one dip into that infinite existence, and with repeated dips, taking dips into it, gives you this sensation of mother's lap. That's where you can lie down and you know that this lap is never going to go away. So experiencing the consciousness, it ultimately has to turn into faith. The faith that we were wasting on flimsy, materialistic objects and people and situations which were mortal, taking our faith away and then fixating on the consciousness within is the ultimate journey. And that will never walk away from you. That will never cheat you. That will never betray you. And that's where the permanent peace and tranquility is. But we don't make the efforts. And without making our efforts and without connecting with the consciousness, the formlessness, we don't even know what we need to put a faith on. That's why repetitive meditative experiences are necessary. Once that happens, the sansar becomes futile. And then you develop a new personality of yourself. All right, so much for today. Thanks for